Hello viewers, you are welcome to this edition of TFN Lunchtime, and I am your host Sergio Brito. In today's edition, the famous Bob Keita case came up in court today, and we have a report for you on that. President Adama Barrow today also presided over the official opening of Royal Insurance Company Gambia Limited new headquarters in Kotu. And in the studio, of course, we have Nyang Njai, a seasoned economist who's going to take us through a range of issues around the Gambian economy. All of these and more coming up shortly after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now let's take a look at some news items. Earlier today, the famous Bob Keita rape trial that has been going on for almost 2 years came up at the Bundung Magistrate Court. Mr. Keita is being accused of raping his ex-wife's younger sister, who was said to be 15 years old at the time of the alleged incident. Here is more in this report.
Free Bob! 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 Free Bob!
Lu tangene free Bob. Tiba pale mane counter. Mina tinal ko Bob yabla. Nenya ko yabla. Ndoli ni aje ndra Bob fasala. Muso ngante nyam muso la fasala. Bar nyam muso menke. Amasila kendoke. No abala fa manke mo kanati. Ni mo kendoti. Ni di wanya gadi meta na di fosoto. Imanga tilimbali ya tilinala. Jafo tole mu amaka mo kendoti. Wala yatinna so Bob yon dawla free Bob mo fa fenke muso le ko malele kaka ma fenke ingata le abula free muso yemenke ama ku kan ga jankati yele kay wudu yele ama
of justice. I am not here for the victim. I am not here for the accused. I am here for justice, and I want justice for both parties. You understand, whether Bob or Mama, you understand, who is the victim. So, and I think they believe the judicial system is not treating Bob's case fairly. You understand? So wala tina moja mafana nata finde na mpurukana kela wo sida tandi katandi molla ko a itel fanang mumolle timeni alan kafako. They're not saying free Bob. They're not saying Bob is innocent of the crime that is accused of, but all they want is a fair trial and transparency, so that when the judgment is passed, the public will be satisfied. In either ways, blames will not be apportioned. You understand?
ñun dañ taxaw pour ñi nga xamné ñom seen bopa they are trying to abuse our rights. Ñun dañ taxaw pour Gambia, dañ taxaw pour justice. President Adama Barrow. No, bul joy, panjang, bul joy. President Adama Barrow. How this country is going is not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay.
Ala sabondi nyimbata ko do ala sa kayra jama kaye alma fondinke ya alma yakuntu ku kayro ko no alma nyi kala bata folo ta alma kala labango fananti abaraka ba
kala jigo soto kiti bu ngol mitaka nyami
nga jiko soto ba kele bayo ku jama wanya kale mol malon ku nyi mol ma kabirin kiti yo folo mol malon min ba findila wala ku o ku wala nata findi dunia ni sabarta ala fongol ka kelo ke alma ale bobu sawo kay alma kelo kay abaraka ba
ninki ya fenke no ama enjoy an laf ka nyame so ma ala dan la fo bi ala ya sawo kay ameta mutarine so ala mari ay wini kiti yonin to dal tol be ko duwa fon ninki la mat wala nan tol be bal fa dam bi na tan jang botol fa sukuta na to futala jang tol ne ma tol dol ne ma long bon nyaaja ngalong ni ko wala na ngalong bal fa wartal momo ya lomoy ni mu wululat wala mu musoti fon ninki la mi tal ko be bal fa dal so wala tol si jang
ñi bi amuñ time police suñ ñu bayyi won duñ def ber problème dañoo duga rek tok all we want is for Bob to go home mu tedda ci lalam bu noy tedda ci kapi yaayam ray bopam bi lool rek mo ñu intéressé dara ñoru ñu tay
Mohamed na mom deyam bi noko gisé
tragique dama fogone lu nit heartless lu nit mu la ñaka liggéey police bala ñoo taxaw fi solo ñu comme ñuy dem wo the person responsible for Mohammed's death should have been arrested mu yóbbu ko fi nga xam ne foofu lañ teg ki nga xam ne is allegedly dañ ko allege of rape it's not even 100% waaye ñun suñ police Gambia soo leen yaakaaree da ngaa dee ci gàcce ñun yàlla rek moo ñëw suturaal ñun Gambien si.
Africa Global presents the new Tulip Gardens. Taft Tulip Gardens is set to comprise service plots in sizes ranging from 220 to 570 meters square. Deposit as low as $83,600 is only an 18-month interest-free payment plan with only 20% deposit on the service plots. Please contact 376-2333 or 776-2333. Tough Africa Global.
Welcome back. Still at the Bundung Magistrates Court, State Counsel Keita was attacked by supporters of Bob Keita as his trial involving an alleged rape case continues.
Sorry? Nothing. Everything is okay. Everything is all right. Yes, yes. This is a guy who want to get 3 years just now. Every case, he put us there for jail. It's like there is fighting.
Yeah, Kachamon guys are just going against the state council, and actually this is not, it's not helping Bob, irrespective of who want justice, but at least,
What are they complaining about?
they are just saying that he's not a Gambian and they are questioning his nationality. It's a machinery job, but actually I'm not satisfied with what is going on. It's not fair in respect, even we want Bob to be free, but we have to do it in a professional and a very respectable manner. This is a court of law. We have to respect it irrespective of what. But I'm not satisfied with what the boys are doing, and it's very disappointing from them. It is very disappointing.
The young boys of this country. During these 3 years of the case, when the state know they are losing, it's the one they brought. And during Bob case also, when the state know that they are losing, it's the one they are bringing him again. Why did he want to jail the youth of this country? Let him go back to his country. Let him go back to his country. But he cannot jail the young men of this country. We are the future leaders of this country. This man will not leave his country. Come here, want to spoil us. And I said,
okay. So it's like things are getting tense because people are complaining against the state council. They are saying he should go back to his country because they think that he's so determined to jail the Gambian youth, who is Bob Keita. We are free Bob. Bob is being taken to the vehicle to be transported back to the mile 2. There is a situation here.
And now, President Adama Barrow today presided over the official opening of Royal Insurance Company Gambia Limited new headquarters in Kotu. Here is an excerpt of the event.
I am honored to be invited to inaugurate the Royal Insurance House, which is an other significant private sector achievement in the country. I wholeheartedly congratulate the Royal Insurance team on this great accomplishment. They are called the Royal Insurance, but today, I think we all believe that they are royal. I understand that Royal Insurance has been in operation for barely 8 years, yet it has invested heavily in this magnificent head office. It is indeed pleasing to see a Gambian company thrive so well. I understand also Royal Insurance is not only a locally conceived Gambian company, but also fully managed by a team of young Gambians under the leadership of Senator Thomas Sow, the Executive Vice Chairman, who doubles as founder and promoter, and Mr. Makairan Bajan, the Managing Director. I am honored to be invited to inaugurate the Royal Insurance House, which is another significant private sector achievement in the country. I wholeheartedly congratulate the Royal Insurance team on this great accomplishment. They are called the Royal Insurance, but today, I think we all believe that they are royal. I understand that Royal Insurance...
Welcome back, viewers. From there, we'll take a look at few international stories. A Juba Airways plane has crashed during landing at Aden Ade Airport in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. All 30 passengers and crew on board have been rescued, the authorities say. The airport staff are currently working to clear the runway. Dramatic images of the fire and smoke from the incident have been shared online, including this one from Somalia State TV. Also, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky on Sunday sacked his chief prosecutor and the head of the country's security agency in the largest government shakeup since the start of Russia's invasion nearly 5 months ago. We'll take a short break, and when we are back, we'll be joined by economist Nyang Jai to discuss the state of the Gambian economy. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and joining me now is our special guest on the show today. Welcome to the Fatu Network once again, Mr. Nyang Jai.
Good afternoon, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Now let's go straight to business. Our source in the central bank says that Gambia's national debt stands at a whopping $88.9 billion, with debt to GDP rising to 85% according to this person. Does this have any significant effects on the economy?
Absolutely, it has quite a significant impact on the economy. Why? Debt is not a bad thing, but there's what you call debt sustainability. Being able to have threshold of debt that you can still pay and still use money for development purposes. But unfortunately in the Gambia, that's not the case. And around 2017, Gambia had what you call a sustainable debt level. But that has changed quite significantly because the Gambia embarked heavily on public infrastructural projects that were not funded by donors, but Gambia GLF, the Gambia Local Fund, which is the budget. And that is through borrowing. And what this has done, it has bloated the debt. So when we fix a budget, And when they say debt to GDP ratio, it means let's say today the debt to GDP ratio is 80%.
Yes.
It means for every $1 that GRA collects, 80% of it, 80 batuts represent the debt we owe. So if we are to pay back, then there won't be much left for agriculture, education, health. And that's why the country is in what you call a debt stress. And the only way out of the debt stress is for government to tame the fiscal operations of government, reduce expenditures.
We will get back to that, but I mean, going by these statistics, one would say that the country is already facing the risk of debt distress. So my question is, in your expert opinion, what is the impact of debt distress on the economy of this country?
Okay, if Gambia was a company, we would say that we are bankrupt. Why? Our total receivables are less than our total payables. So it means we are not a going concern if we were a private business. But unfortunately, countries don't fold. But we have seen what happened in Ghana less than a week ago. And even the IMF is trying to bail them out.
Yeah.
Now creditors are rushing, trying to tell Ghana you need to pay. So the impact to the economy is quite significant. And the most significant aspect of it is what it takes away from the budget. It takes considerable amount of resources. And to make matters worse in the Gambia, when we owe debt, it means government is collecting money through you and me by way of T-bills. And when these T-bills mature and they're due to pay, government roll them over again. It means I give government $1 million, 20% interest rate, for example. They owe me $1,200,000 come end of the year. But at the end of the year, most of the time people roll over. So now I have $1,200,000 that government has rolled over. They didn't give me cash, but now they have an IOU. And this is very bad for the economy and it's affecting everybody. But what's going to happen next is the crowding out also. Because when government needs more than the private sector, government borrowing is easier for the banks. Why? It's risk-free. When you borrow money to the central bank, you can go to bed, sleep, knowing that your monies are safe. Compared to, the bank trying to give money to a businessman who can fold, you trying to sell the house. So it's risk-free investment. And banks tend to like it. And when they do that, it creates a moral hazard. The moral hazard is banks don't easily want to lend to the private sector and the economy will not grow. So right now the government is beginning once again to compete with the private sector for resources.
So now, recently we've seen almost a daily spike in the prices of commodities, especially food. The governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia, Boa, said a couple of months ago disclosed an exponential rise of 11.7% from 8.2% of the inflation rate in March 2002 to April 2002. So according to the governor... 2022, right. 2022. So according to Boa Saidi, food inflation is primarily responsible for the surge in inflation rates as food inflation jumped from 9.2% in March to 11.6% in April. So what I want to know is there any relations between the prices of food and inflation in general, and does it affect the lives of the people?
See, I think the global economy is in crisis. But in as much as the global economy is in crisis, countries need to take the requisite measures to safeguard their food chain, their food supply, and their populations. It is true, once again, that food inflation globally is now double digits anywhere you go in the world. But the question we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing as a nation to solve this problem? And what do I mean by what are we doing? What policy measures is government putting in place? This is the time for the government of the Gambia to implement an import substitution strategy. If you look at Gambia, you look at our current account, exports minus imports, you know that most of what we consume comes in. So we're exporting less but buying a lot outside. Why is it that the government of the Gambia is not looking for substitutes for vegetables coming from Morocco, Senegal, and beyond? Why is it that the government of the Gambia is not trying to find substitute for the Don Simons and others which can be made locally? Why is it that the government of the Gambia is not trying to look for substitute for dairy product, milk, etc.? Why is it that the government of the Gambia is not trying to look for one of our major items, flour and rice, but particularly rice coming from Southeast Asia? Why is it that the government of the Gambia is not trying to promote an import substitution strategy for rice? Once we do that, the Gambian economy will somehow be insulated from external factors, i.e. the supply chain, i.e. freight, i.e. commodity pricing internationally. So if we grow more rice, the vulnerability of external shocks reduce. Once the vulnerability of external shocks reduces, price levels tend to stabilize. Once price level tends to stabilize, inflation is tamed.
Now, going back to the debt crisis, because this seems like a looming problem for sub-Saharan Africa especially. And to me, I think that Africa's looming debt crisis cannot be discussed in the absence of what I like to call, quote, the China influence. Because in the past, most of the money owed was to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and then the World Bank. So the fund, to some extent, I like to believe, had power to demand that these countries have prudent economic reforms as a condition for help. And then, but the China influence has risen, and dramatically, I would like to say, especially in the past couple of years. And the thing is that they don't seem to put much emphasis on good governance. How does this influence impact African economies at large?
Well, before I get to that, we need to put a context.
Yeah.
Africa in general has been bailed out in the late 90s, early 2000s by a program called HIPIC, Highly Indebted Poor Countries.
Yes.
You had HIPIC 1 and HIPIC 2. And Gambia went through debt relief. And that's how the government of the Gambia ended up owning Kairaba Hotel, because it was a Norwegian loan. Once it was time to pay, Norway let it go and the asset reverted to Gambia. Our debt levels were manageable.
Yeah.
Gambia got to a point, you know, we were on schedule for our debts and it was not a distress on our expenditures. Now, China in the equation mid 2000s.
Yes.
What happened? Conditionalities were out of the way. All China wanted was resources. And China didn't want to politically interfere. So basically, conditions were not there. And there was no prudence in African countries in lending. And now we have seen the damage done by China aid, money from China or loans from China. So is it the responsibility of the World Bank and the IMF? My answer is no. Because countries have a responsibility to diligently manage their resources. It's a shame that I'm not only talking about Gambia, but across the board, especially East and South Africa, what we have seen and how China has taken a grip of those economies, that our leaders are reckless, our leaders are immediate term, they don't even think of the medium term. And right now, the whole continent is in a debt disarray. So what can we do going forward to change? I think that's what we need to ask ourselves. We need fiscal prudence. We need to change and manage the fiscal dominance we have seen in our economies. Now I will narrow it down and bring it home in the Gambia. If you look at the total debt stock from independence to date, and you look at Adama Barrow's total debt stock for his presidency relative to the overall debt, it's not sustainable. And if he were to stay at this rate before this term finishes, unless expenditure is curtailed, we are going to see problems. And the reason why is, when you borrow money, you should find funds and match them to projects that are self-liquidating. Today, if you borrow and build a bridge and you put a toll on the bridge will pay for itself. That is good borrowing. But if you borrow money and most of what you borrow, you end up spending in recurrent expenditure, you're not helping because it doesn't yield any productive return. So in the end, we need new resources to pay for monies we have spent. And when you spend money on air tickets, rent, per diem, it's money that fizzles. So you need new money to pay because it's not bringing in anything. And that's why I think we need a strong Minister of Finance who will look at the executive in the eye, particularly the president, say, yes, if wishes were horses, all beggars be riding. Equally, Gambia as a going concern cannot afford all of these things, but we need to prioritize our priorities. And in prioritizing our priorities, we need what you call deferment. Some of the development aspirations we have, we need to defer them until there is a better economic outlook globally, regionally, and nationally. And right now, what the government needs to focus more is on social programs. I've been saying this and I will continue to say it. Politics is a way to effect change in country, but social disillusionment also is a way to effect change in a country. And a hungry man is an angry man. And what I'm seeing in the country as it relates to price hikes, it may get to a point, people power will show government what time it is.
Absolutely. And African leaders seem to have a great appetite for loans, as we can see right now, oftentimes ignoring the heavy servicing that comes with it, and also the immediate, macroeconomic implications and subsequently economic growth and development. I mean, how significant is it for the continent to have, proper fiscal policies to make sure that, these things are properly handled?
Okay, I'm going to link this again to the West Africa monetary zone that has been highly talked about of us having an echo.
Yeah.
The very reason why that currency cannot take foot is because of fiscal dominance. Each country, each government want to borrow from their local central banks. So if we have a monetary union today, you have one central bank. The central bank has what you call convergence criteria. You cannot borrow more than X% of your previous year's budget. Deficit financing cannot be more than this. So that curtails the hands of these governments. And these are the reasons why our debt has been growing, because we don't have parameters that are acceptable internationally. We're just doing what we think we want and what the IMF and the World Bank can just put a slap, on our wrist. So right now, we need leaders who are conscientious. We need leaders who are thinking about the future, because what this particular government has done, they have leveraged the lives of Gambians yet unborn, because $25 billion that has been borrowed is not going to be paid by me and you. It will be paid by kids that are not even born today. And if we invested those things that are yielding positive, growth, they wouldn't mind, because it would have been an investment. But if we spend it on our lifestyle, i.e. travels, paying for embassies, paying for per diems, we're not helping those people yet unborn, and we're putting a burden on their back. So the country cannot and will not develop, and that's why the arrested development has been here before Jammeh, during Jammeh, and that culture hasn't changed. And it's that culture that should change to make sure that progressive and sustainable economic development takes root.
And just talking about development, I want to touch on the ongoing OIC project. I know you've worked with the OIC before on the communications department, and just a few days ago we've seen the Gambian leader saying that basically work is not going as it is supposed to. Do you have any idea, or do you have any confidence in this project that Gambia will in fact hold the OIC conference?
Well, whether they will hold it or not, it's a political decision left with the OIC Secretariat, not the Secretariat here, but in Jeddah, whether they will allow Gambia. But people need to understand that it's Africa's turn to host. And Gambia volunteered to host, and Africa as a region supported Gambia. The date has been changed twice. There's been 2 deferments. And why? Planning. Resources have been made available for these roads. But the procurement process has been cumbersome, and timing is not on their side. When you're doing road construction, your biggest enemy is rainy season. Why? Because a majority of road construction work is compaction, making the road very hard. And when it rains, the soil is soft. When the soil is soft, when heavy equipment goes on it, it opens it up. So whether work is slow or not, come end of this month, it's going to be very difficult till mid to end October for serious work to take place. What has happened? In my view, the planning is poor, and meddling in procurement processes took a lot of time, who is to be awarded, who are to compete. And this is why things are not done right. You see, politicians should have a dream. Technicians should execute the dream of these politicians. But when politicians and technicians happen to be strange bedfellows and they sleep on the same bed, this is the end result, and that's why where we found ourselves today.
And finally, before I let you go, I don't want to go deep into this topic because clearly it's in the courts and I don't want to be held for contempt, obviously. But I just want to have your idea about Gambia's judicial system, because this case has been making headlines for the past week, and I see a lot of people on social media saying that the reason why it has gotten to where it is today is because of our messed up judicial system, some people say. What is your opinion on this entire process?
Well, I think the Gambian judicial system has evolved and evolved positively over time, especially post Yaya Jammeh. We have seen the Gambianization of the bench, which is good,
yes,
but that's not good enough. What we have seen also that me personally, Nyanjai, I'm not happy with, is the disregard of court orders, i.e. Global Homes and the government, and also the custodian of the law in this country, the Attorney General's chambers, using ultra-vires means to address legal issues. When the court makes an order and you are aggrieved, you go back to the court. You don't circumvent the court. And the AG should be the champion. That office should be the champion of law and order. And that office has really put court orders aside, circumvented by trying to get, a cancellation of a lease, whereby they could have gone to the courts and say, we're not happy with the ruling you have made. On this particular case, I think it's been messy. Why? Globally, it's not acceptable that a case has been adjourned over 30 times.
Yeah.
A magistrate didn't appear. People have the right, the country has a right to remand people. But also we need to expedite, because justice delayed is justice denied. And what happened for the case, the period this case has taken, is a travesty of justice. But everyone involved in this case is a victim. The child, right now, I would have expected social welfare to be involved.
Not a single word from them.
To call the police and say, open an investigation because the welfare of a child has been compromised. Equally, anyone who is accusing someone of rape, I will give you the benefit of the doubt that you are a victim. But in as much as you are a victim, the person that is accused should be accorded dignity, because the presumption of innocence is the foundation of our law. And today, basically, the innocent is the one who should prove that I'm innocent, and that's not how our law works. And if you look at the symbols of justice, Lady Justice happens to have a veil on over his head, overlooking the scales, and it's blind. So justice should be blind. And what has happened, not recently, but over this period, it's just questionable whether justice will be served.
Thank you very much, Nyang, for coming through to the Fatu Network.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. That will be the end of the show. Do join us tomorrow if you can. Thank you very much for watching and have a good day.